Hey, welcome back. Nick with BatBreak.com. Joined here with Dan Cleary, Steve Masi. We're discussing game used bats, and we've got some of our favorite bats in our personal collections with us today. So I'd love to show you them and discuss why they are our favorites. So Dan, what do you got with you?
Brought a few today. I'm a Red Sox collector, so that's kind of all I have. But we'll start with this. This is a cool Manny Ramirez bat, which was made for the 2003 playoffs, which ended awfully, if you asked me. A guy named Aaron Boone.
I have a different
loved it.
opinion on that one. But
So
okay.
this is a 2003 Louisville Slugger. Has the Pro Maple, which is a way to tell. I think just 03 bats. He did not use this in the playoffs, but he did hit a 2-run homer against the Yankees in 2004, which is a World Series season. So uncracked Manny home run bat from a World Series years.
Very cool.
Definitely one of my favorites. And this wine color, he didn't use a lot of these. So, and I have this one very perfectly photo matched. So
Such
it's
a
cool
unique color.
Would that be Galen? Is that what?
Something like that.
I think they called this one wine or something, right?
Wine, maybe.
Or Galen, but typically,
I can see
like
the amazingly deep seam impressions. I mean, that is just crushed.
Manny, I mean, he swung as hard as anybody.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about, since you mentioned it, Steve, what you look for when we first pick up a bat and you're looking for the game use? What are you looking for? When you mentioned the seam impressions,
I always look down the barrel, and I want to see use.
Right. In the form of
ball marks, ink transfers from the ink on the baseballs.
Some leather scuffs, maybe.
Leather scuffs are great.
Yeah.
Just something to indicate that it's actually been used. Obviously pine tar. If that is a trait of said player, if they use pine tar, I want to. If they're a guy who wrote their number on their knob, I want to see that. This is a great bat.
Yeah, and it's hard to write. You see those seam marks there, and we'll zoom in.
You got to sort of hold those up to the light, but I mean, this thing is just peppered.
I mean, you can't fake that if you take a bat in the batting cage.
No, if we got in the batting cage and I threw the ball at you as hard as I could, you swung as hard as you could, we wouldn't be making that mark.
No.
And Manny is a guy, usually, this one doesn't have as much, but he didn't care how he held the bat.
Yeah, I can see
spin all
use
around.
all over the place. Yeah.
Right.
And Manny's another guy who, if he homered with this bat, he would come up a couple innings later against the same pitcher carrying a different bat, using a teammate's bat, much smaller, much lighter.
I felt like Cano was like that in his Yankee years. Like I always used to joke that he would walk by the bat rack and just grab a bat.
Manny did that.
It was just it was all over the place.
And even if he was in a groove, like I said, if he homered off a guy in the first inning, faced him again in the third, same guy, he'd come in with a different bat.
So not very superstitious, is what
I don't think
so. And it's so important to know which players were like that. As a guy like Manny, he could hit with anything. He's such an amazing hitter.
Yep.
And if you look online at photos and footage, he always using teammates and other players' bats, swapping out bats in game, even when he's seeing the ball well.
I've seen him use bats from guys that are no longer on the team, like 2 years ago. Like he would just pick it up and use it.
It worked for him.
Yep.
Yeah, in different models.
It did.
Great bat. What do you got next?
Thank you. This is a 2006 Dustin Pedroia Sam bat, and this is actually his debut bat. So the first bat that Pedroia ever used in the majors.
That's great.
He came up, I believe it was late August of 2006, but I have this one matched to his first career game.
Wow.
Which is cool, being a Red Sox fan and love
sure.
Pedroia.
So did you know that when you purchased the bat? Or
I had an idea. I had a pretty good idea. I definitely had it matched.
99% sure.
Yeah. And then, when you have a hunch sometimes, you kind of got to just go for it.
Right.
Roll the dice, and then hopefully you can match it or get more info later. So that one I was able to match.
So potentially his first career major league hit.
Could be.
With the bat.
Could be. But again, you can see tons of use.
Yeah, that thing's peppered too.
Ball marks. He just kind of started with the Moda and tape job, which is filthy. But very cool Pedroia.
And what's neat, which we could touch on with Sam bats, is they would write the production date in the cupped end here by hand, which they still do. So on this one was May 31st, 06, and then he was called up
like a month or two later.
Yeah, so it fits right in the timeline of when the bat was used. Just a great. You could see he might have got frustrated after that bat here and slammed it in the bat rack.
He was an emotional man.
Yeah.
And then just lastly right here, 2004 David Ortiz Louisville Slugger. You can tell it's 04 because 04 had the Select Maple branding here. So as a Red Sox collector, they won in 04.
Wow, yeah.
So it's a very nice giveaway for if I find
The
a
barrel
select
branding
maple,
got a little bit bigger in 04 too,
yeah,
didn't it?
they started
Yeah.
doing
font.
the laser etch
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they call it.
And that's screened on the label. It's
Mhm.
not burned.
Not
So this is a
burned.
maple bat. So they didn't want to compromise the integrity of the wood. So they went away from the ash branding and started screening on
So
the label.
Ortiz kind of started experimenting with wrap jobs in
Mhm.
2004. This is a very early on tape job.
Now, was he mainly a Louisville Slugger guy that
No,
far back?
no,
Or
he was
wasn't. Okay.
mostly
Rawlings.
Rawlings.
Okay. Oh yeah. I've
2003,
seen a lot
he
of
was
those.
Rawlings and a little bit of Diablo bats,
I remember those.
and he would use a couple different guys
Kona.
too. But in 04, it was Louisville Slugger and Rawlings, I think almost the whole way through, and then was Rawlings for years, then Nakona, and then
Yeah.
Marucci for like the last
Yeah.
5 years of his
Right.
career, and those are the ones that everyone wants.
Right. And the 04 obviously is going to always sell for a premium,
premium.
have a special
It's-
place in the
it's
Red Sox
actually-
heart.
Actually, no. As
Really?
far as sales wise, people don't seem to value his early sluggers and early or any of his Rawlings more than the Maruccis, because the
Interesting.
Maruccis have the lizard skin.
The eye appeal.
He got
It all goes back to that.
he
I
got
think.
he used
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of tar back in the day, but way more tar towards the
Mhm.
end. But the eye appeal, and it's kind of like the Brett bats, where early career Ortiz are just not as valuable or collectible as his later ones, which is great for me because I love the
Yeah.
old
So you can
Rawlings.
find them, you buy them.
Of course,
Yeah.
100%.
It's incredible how cheap you could get a David Ortiz Rawlings bat. You know,
under
which
$1,000.
is- Yeah,
like
which is
pretty all day
amazing.
long, under $1,000, and
Right.
the Maruccis are, 3,000 to 4,000
Yeah.
right at the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool bats, pieces of Red Sox history. I mean, all three of them. I mean, man, unbelievable. I'm sure
Thank
any
you.
Red Sox collector would love to have them. Beautiful bats. Steve, what do you got?
I brought along three of my favorite vintage bats. This is a 69 to 70 Roberto Clemente. I think this is the first real vintage Hall of Fame bat that I ever purchased. Still one of my favorites for numerous reasons. One, it just looks cool. Flared handle. Clemente was a big flared handle guy. His number on the knob,
Right.
super
It
bold.
didn't fade much.
This bat comes in at just under 40 ounces. It is unbelievably heavy.
It's without a doubt the biggest bat I've
Yeah.
ever seen
And
or held.
It's unbelievable.
And Roberto Clemente went about $1.75.
Yeah.
Like, was not a big man.
Right.
I do think, I've talked about people with this before, I think you'll find that a lot of his teammates that era, those Pirates all swung huge bats. And I've heard people tell me that they think maybe it was the hitting coach. Like, they all swung giant bats. Roberto Clemente probably the biggest. But this is graded GU 9.5. Some really great ball marks up here. Great use all around. Just, an incredible bat. The pine, there's some pine tar on here, which is great.
The wood grain. I mean, that's just a beautiful
Yeah.
the finish.
All around it. It's definitely in my top 3 or 4 bats that I own. Clemente bats have steadily gone up in value as they should.
Yeah.
Really super pleased with this bat. He started in earlier in his career. He was strictly a Louisville guy, and then sort of the late '60s, you'll see him swinging these Adirondacks a lot, as much if not more than the Louisvilles towards the end of his career. This one had an interesting story. It came from a grandson of somebody who was an early investor in the Montreal Expos, and the bat was when he was in Montreal playing the Expos. He gave that's how the bat was acquired, and couldn't be happier with this one.
That's great.
It sort of checks all the boxes.
Right.
Yep. So
And one of those guys that the first time you see his bats in person, like Dan said, I mean, you're blown away.
kind of
at the
awe-inspiring.
size. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just the size of it. The fact that he had that kind of bat speed swinging something like
yeah,
that.
and you compare that to a Gwynn
The
bat.
handle's so thick. And that's more surprising to me is how thick the
Yeah.
handle is.
I think that in the '70s is when that handle started to shrink for everybody. Really,
It's a big,
Yeah.
and he's got the knobless handle,
which was more with I mean, I think the last guy who was doing that was probably Biggio. You don't see a lot of guys swinging knobless bats anymore.
Right.
That was sort of a bigger thing in the '60s and '70s. But yeah, it's one of my faves.
Yeah, beautiful bat.
And then this one here is a 1968 specific Adirondack Pete Rose bat. If you collect 3,000 hit guys, you kind of have to get Pete Rose because he's He's got the most.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or 4,000 hit guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. 60s rose bats are tough to come by.
Mm-hmm.
So when this one came on my radar, I sort of wanted to jump all over it. The 80s rose bats are the ones that really seem to carry a huge premium because the
those are Mizunos? Yeah.
The Mizunos, he would have the really cool ones have the athletic tape here, and then he has the rings, and those are great.
Mm-hmm.
There are obviously more of them.
Mm-hmm.
So he, before the 80s, he was a Louisville guy and an Adirondack guy. He kind of went back and forth. This is also a big bat. I think this bat's
35
or 36. Yeah, it's a big bat. Again, it's 68 specific. Great use. A lot of good use in here. The 14 on the knob, which is you want to see the number on the knob in a rose bat.
It's amazing how it's the knob, both the Clemente and the rose, how bold, how much the number on the knob has remained intact over the years.
Yeah. For a bat that's that old.
Right.
This is graded a GU9. It's signed by Pete, which you'd hard pressed to find any memorabilia
Not signed
these days. It isn't signed by Pete
because he's probably in Vegas right now at that booth.
And he's still with us. And obviously Clemente not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But Pete Rose, you can.
It was 68, you said?
68. The thin. That's when they started to put the ring on the Rawlings bat.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, on the Adirondack bats, so that people would know that they weren't Louisville Sluggers on television.
Right.
And the first year they did was that thin, and then in '69 that got bigger, probably twice as it went to that.
To that, that's amazing. Put those next to each other.
Yeah,
look at that. So this was what years?
This is '69, '70. And this is 68
That's
specific.
a year before. Look, and that's just
that's 5 or 6 times thicker.
Yeah, you can see everything else is the same. The barrel, the branding, the center brand is the same. This was just a marketing thing.
Right,
So
marketing.
they made it bigger.
Which I think it's banned now by MLB to have any ring on your bat.
Oh, is that so?
If you think about it, none of the manufacturers today have one. I could be wrong, but I believe I'd have to check.
Rawlings doesn't have them still?
No, they just have that R on there.
It's just the R.
Yeah.
Weird.
They're all gone.
Okay. What's wrong with the rings?
I don't know.
It's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
It was good question.
Okay.
And last but certainly not least is this 69 to 72 Hank Aaron. So obviously, again, Hank Aaron, 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, kind of the guy you got to get.
One of the best.
And 69 to 72, he was still hammering Hank. He was still hitting a ton of home runs. Another great bat. This is GU9, I believe. Big, bold signature. Great use. 44 on the knob, which is a big Hank Aaron trait.
Yeah.
You want that.
And this is their handwriting, all three of these guys. It's kind of a personal touch to the bat.
Yeah, especially back then it was more the players and less the equipment managers.
Right.
And you can, I have bats, so you can match up the handwriting to other bats.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny how much smaller it is when you compare it to the Pete Rose and the Clemente, but it's still just a fantastic.
What year did you say that one?
69 to 72. So
another guy just incredibly undervalued. I mean, it's unbelievable for his career accomplishments. Unbelievable. But
for sure,
the home run king, at least at one point, the hit king and Clemente. It's not a bad trio right there.
No, not at all. That's some of my all-time faves.
Yeah.
So
those are great.
What do you have there, Nick?
What do you got here?
So I got more modern guys here.
Speaking of home run kings,
just to mix it up. Yeah. Speaking of home runs, Barry Bonds. This is an 04 Sam bat. So when the maple craze happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was really because of Barry and Sam bat. Barry in 01, as we all know, broke McGuire's record using these Canadian-produced Sam bats, which just have such a cool logo to them, such a different look. And then the tape job that Barry had. I mean, all of his bats from, I believe, 01 on, maybe 2000 on, had this unique tape job with the spiral tape running into the crisscross tape. You've got the large flared knob. I mean, this was a custom model made for Barry. This knob was actually made the same size as a baseball, which Barry designed. It really balances out the weight. And both these guys, when they held the bat, their first comment as well, it's a lot lighter than I would expect.
Surprising for a guy his size.
Right. So it's balanced because of the weight distribution with the larger knob. But just a lot of eye appeal. I mean, if you're collecting bats, you almost have to have a Barry Bonds bat. and you just look at the use here, how deep
Again,
these seam marks are.
Just covered in seam marks.
Right, and Barry was consistent with batting with the label facing down or away from him. So all the use is here on this right barrel, as opposed to most lefties would have it here.
So it looks like a right-handed hitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got to say, that's probably the largest seam mark I've ever seen. That got that much of the seam.
Right. It's unbelievable.
Flat in the baseball.
Crush that thing.
There's no way that ball wasn't.
No.
It might have ended up in the water. You don't know.
Or
But,
kill the first base coach.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So this bat was actually gifted to Andrew Jones in 2004, which I believe was Barry's final MVP season. Barry was so popular, he was gifting bats quite frequently, and he'd usually have this signature "God bless Barry Bonds," and it was given to Andrew Jones, another fantastic player. So a neat bat. Barry Bonds Sam bat really changed kind of the bat game. Everyone went maple after
Talk
that.
about eye appeal.
Yeah, it's just
And
it's
he's another guy whose later career bats carry a premium over the earlier career bats. When he was swinging Louisville's, and they didn't have nearly the tape, or they just didn't look as cool.
It's a beautiful bat.
Yeah.
It's amazing his Louisville's. He's winning MVPs with Louisville's early in his career.
Yeah.
You could find them for a fraction of the cost. But there's really, when this is hanging on a wall, people kind of gravitate towards it. They're like, man, this is
Yeah, I don't care
cool
what you think about Barry Bonds. It's a great bat to
It's
have.
a-
It's kind of a must.
He played a huge role in baseball history. Then going back to my guy Tony Gwynn, this is a 1999 bat, and what was cool about this was as Tony was approaching 3,000 hits, he had Louisville Slugger brand 3,000 on his bat, and he would write the hit number that he got with this. So this was hit number 2,976.
I didn't know that until today. That's so cool.
Which is really cool. And he bought his own bats from Louisville Slugger as opposed to the Padres buying the bats. So he had the right to keep them after he got the hit. And him and his wife Alicia would auction these bats off for their charity, Tag Tony and Alicia Gwynn charity for children. So it went towards a good cause. He bought all these bats himself from Louisville Slugger. Another neat point to this bat, in 1999, Louisville switched to the MLB logo, being branded on the center brand of the sweet spot of their bats. And Tony actually liked this swinging friar logo.
That's super cool.
He had this put on the bats in place of the MLB logo, which was pretty unique. You've got pine tar, the taped handle here. On the knob, you've got the bat specs, the model number and weight and his number. This was the Padres equipment manager would do this. So Tony Gwynn, my favorite player, pretty neat bat. And then I got Ichiro here, another amazing hitter. This was a Mizuno bat from 2013 with the Yankees. Tremendous use here.
Right.
Like Steve was saying earlier, Ichiro used to clean his bats.
Yeah,
you'd see those Ichiro bats come out, and they'd be spotless because he would take so much care, which is amazing. But for a bat collector, what do I want with a clean bat?
He also wouldn't let the equipment guys take care of his bats. He took his own bats with him at all times in his own
his own
humidor.
In the humidor, he would keep his bats in the humidor and a carrier to preserve them. When he came over to the States and was watching fellow American players bang their bats and throw them, he was like
horrified.
disgusted. Oh my gosh. But later in his career, he started to get a little more American, I guess, and bang his bats around.
He wasn't clean. He wasn't cleaning the ball marks off.
Right. So you see the ball marks here. So this bat is photo matched to his time with the Yankees. He got 7 or 8 hits with it. You can see it's cracked here. This was one of those bats I got that was still really sticky when I got it. A lot of tar, which Icho didn't start doing until later in his career. So a cool bat. Again, another guy with it's almost a must-have for an advanced bat collection. We talk about the amount of hits he got between Japan and the U.S., and it's neat to see a Pete Rose gamer next to Pete Rose and Ichiro, Hank Aaron and Bonds.
Ichiro might be the best hitter of all time. I mean, really, if you break it down between Japan and here.
There's an argument there for sure.
The fact that he got 3,000 hits in the U.S. is pretty remarkable at his age. But it's really neat to see these guys breaking each other's records and the evolution of the bat here. I mean, this is so skinny barrel, light, well-balanced bat, and then Rose is swinging a big
club,
and then the same with Bonds, compared to the Aaron bats. But really neat bats from legends from all different eras, and it's really again remarkable when you could go back and trace and pinpoint, like Dan, some of your bats here when they were actually used and the significance they played and hitting some big time home runs and Pedroia's debut. I mean, how cool! I bet you he wouldn't mind having that bat back.
Let's not let him know.
Too late.
Of course.
But great.
I feel very fortunate to be able to do this and have these things. and share with people. That's the best part.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for bringing these today, guys. Really
No problem.
enjoyed
Thanks for
seeing
having
them,
us.
and these are it's no it's apparent why these are some of your favorites. Really, some cool pieces of history here that belong in a museum. Really.
Well, here we are.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Nick.
Yeah.